like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't go to the study and take down a book to read. Pick up the dulcimer and play. There are thousands of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Let the beauty you love be what you do, be what you are. Welcome. I'm Burke Owens, and it is a blessing to see you all here tonight. Those of you that are here live and those of you that are visiting from, I see names on the screen. How cool that is. Through the magic of Zoom technology. Someone wrote earlier today and called it Zoomy. I'm not ready to go that far, but I appreciate the thought. So it's wonderful to be able to share my love of Rumi with you. I know a number of you are already avid Rumi readers and appreciate his work, but I wouldn't be able to do this tonight without our incredible tech team that is here, Scott and Bill and Steve, as well as our guests. A round of applause. As well as our incredible musicians with Fiume and Musica. If you all wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves and say a little bit about your wonderful instrument, that would be nice for everyone to know. Most people probably know you already, but just in case.
I'm Mimi Carlson. I play the flute and do more than just a lot of hot air.
I'm Alan Cooper. I'm the violin. Been around for a long time.
Julianne Stafford, and today I have my oboe and my English horn.
I'm John Whitecar, play the bass.
And I'm Nancy Whitecar at the piano.
Thank you all for being here. So my appreciation of Rumi goes back many years. My wife Caroline and I, who's sitting in the second row to my right in the blue blouse, the glasses, and the long, beautiful hair, discovered Rumi a long, long time ago when we lived in a spiritual community in upstate New York, which was the abode of the message. It was a Sufi community. And so that was my first real introduction to organized religion, though most of us, if we went there, would not think of it as organized religion. But it was an organized worship and a faith community. So it was very powerful for me, given my upbringing without any religion at all. And Rumi, at least in the versions that I know, the English translations from Coleman Barks and Robert Bly and others, speaks to a certain eternal constancy and presence of God's being in our lives. And it inspired me then, and it still does. So I wanted to share a little bit about who Rumi was, because Rumi was born in 1207. Where were you in 1207? It was a long time ago, 800 plus years ago. And Rumi was born to the family. They were called the Balkis because they were from Balkh, which is a city in northern Afghanistan, almost on the border with the other stands, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, all those stands. And so they were. He was born there. The family was growing there, and his father was a great jurist and spiritual teacher. He had his own madrasa, which is like a seminary. They're still all over the Middle East. And in this particular one, they were happy there in Afghanistan, but the word was Genghis Khan was coming. Better leave town soon. So they did. They moved to southern Turkey, which was quite a distance, settled in the town of Konya. And so Rumi is now called Rumi because they settled in a region called Rum, which was a province that the Romans had colonized long before. So he could have been called Balkhi, but instead he's called Rumi. So Rumi was born in 1207. The family moves, and he's in his early 20s, mid-20s, when his father dies unexpectedly, so Rumi takes over the madrasa, the school. He also becomes a local jurist, a leading member of the community, gets married, starts to have children himself. 12 years after he takes over his father's position in the community, he's following in his dad's footsteps, respected, well-liked, well-respected, and all that good stuff. He meets a dervish named Shams of Tabriz. And Shams was a wild, living in the wilds kind of dervish. He didn't have a home. He only had that first name, Shams. They called him of Tabriz because he was from the town of Tabriz in Iran. Shams comes up to him. Rumi is standing by a fountain in the courtyard of the school. His students are all around. He's giving a lecture on something. Next to him, on top of the wall next to the fountain, are his collected works, Rumi's collected works of the time, which is a lot of theology, a lot of jurist talk, some important things for him. Shams comes up to him and says, "That's your life's work. If you come and work with me, I will show you real work. I will show you God's presence in your life." And then he throws Rumi's work into the water, where it will just dissolve and completely go away. Rumi has a choice to make. Does he go with Shams or not? Shams says, "If you come with me, the paper will stay in the fountain. If you don't want me at all, I'll take it out and it will be perfectly fine, dry, like nothing had ever happened to it." Rumi decides to go with him. For the next 4 years, they spend a lot of time together, learning from each other, but especially Rumi learning from Shams. At a certain point, the members of his family and of the school get jealous and upset that Shams is taking all of Rumi's attention. So the story is that they kidnap Shams and kill him and throw his body somewhere. Rumi never finds out what happens to him. In fact, he spends the next few months after this happens searching for Rumi. Goes as far as Damascus, a long ways away. Comes back and says, "Shams is now in me. I no longer need him out there." So he starts writing and singing and creating these incredible pieces of work, some of which we'll hear tonight. He gets other followers. Eventually, it moves from him being the teacher at a religious school to him being the leader of a spiritual organization. And the Mevlevis, which is the group he founded, are one of the Sufi schools that continue to exist in the Middle East. They're the ones that developed the whirling. You might have seen pictures of whirling dervishes. There's one actually on the program. So what Rumi decided was, this was later in his career before he passes on, he said the leader of the school is like the sun, and all the students are like the planets that orbit around the sun. So this teacher would stand to one side of the Kanka, which is the gathering hall where the Sufis go. The leader would stand to one side, and all of the other students would start to whirl around him as the center of the universe. Now, he wasn't doing this because, boy, aren't I the greatest thing ever. This is a form of respect to show to your teachers that will allow you then to go deeper in your own practice and learning. And the reason is, you've seen the pictures, they wear a tall black conical hat. That symbolizes the grave. And the white outfit they wear, they come in before they start the whirling, they have a black cloak on. They throw the cloak away, which symbolizes they're giving themselves over to God and to eternity. So, this is a little bit about Rumi. He died in 1274, something like that. And he wound up writing 3 massive volumes. And the Masnavi, which is the book of spiritual teachings, his greatest work, is more lines. It's 64,000 lines. So more lines than Shakespeare, more lines than Dante, more lines than anyone at the time. So if volume counts, he was right up there. But it's what he says, I think, that's more important. So that's a little bit on Rumi. I think it's now time for our next musical offering. Three poems on who and what are we. Who says words with my mouth? All day long I think about it, and at night I can't sleep. Where did I come from, and what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere, I know this, but I can't get there from here. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a bird from another continent, sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I fly off, but who is it now in my ear who hears my voice? Who says words with my mouth? Who looks out with my eyes? And what is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't leave that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me home. This poetry, I never know what I'm going to say. I don't plan it. When I'm outside the saying of it, I get very quiet and rarely speak at all. The new rule. It's the old rule that drunks have to argue and get into fights. The lover is just as bad. He falls into a hole. But down in that hole, he finds something shining, worth more than any amount of money or diamonds or riches. Last night, the moon came dropping its clothes from out of the sky into the street. I took it as a sign to start singing, falling up into the bowl of sky. The bowl breaks. Everything is everywhere. Nothing else to do. Here's the new rule. Break the wine glass and fall toward the glass blower's breath. The many wines. God has given us a dark wine so potent that we leave the two worlds. God made Majnun love Layla so much that just her dog would cause confusion in him. There are thousands of wines that can take over your mind. Don't think all ecstasies are the same. Jesus was lost in his love for God, his donkey, and his love for barley. Every object, every being is a jar full of delight. Be a connoisseur and taste with caution. Any wine will get you high. Judge like a king and choose the purest, the ones unadulterated with fear or some urgency about what's needed now. Drink the wine that moves you, as a horse moves freely after it's been untied and let out of its stall, just joyfully ambling about. Bismillah. It's a habit of yours to walk slowly. You hold a grudge for years. With such heaviness, how can you be modest? With such attachments, do you expect to arrive anywhere? Be wide as the air to learn a secret. Right now, your equal portions, clay and water, mud. Abraham learned how the sun and the moon and the stars all set. He said, no longer will I try to assign partners for God. You are so weak. Give up to grace. The ocean takes care of each wave till it gets to shore. You need more help than you know. You're trying to live your life in open scaffolding. Say Bismillah in the name of God as the priest does when at night he offers an animal for sacrifice. Bismillah your old self to find your real name. Next poem is called Wean Yourself. Little by little wean yourself. This is the gist of what I have to say. From an embryo whose nourishment comes in the blood, move to an infant drinking milk, to a child on solid food, to a searcher after wisdom, to a hunter of more invisible game. Think how it is to have a conversation with an embryo. You might say, the world outside is vast and intricate. There are wheat fields and mountain passes and orchards in bloom. At night, there are millions of galaxies, and in sunlight, the beauty of friends dancing at a wedding. You ask the embryo why he or she stays cooped up in the dark with eyes closed. Listen to the answer. There is no other world. I only know what I've experienced. You must be hallucinating. And the last one in this section, chickpea cook. I think I've shared this with some of you before. A chickpea leaps almost over the brim of the pot where it's being boiled. Why are you doing this to me? The cook knocks him down with a ladle. Don't you try to jump out. You think I'm torturing you, but I'm giving you flavor so that you can mix with spices and rice and become the nutrition of a human being. Remember when you drank rain in the garden? That was for this. Grace first, sexual pleasure, then a boiling new life begins, and the friend has something good to eat. Eventually the chickpea will say to the cook, boil me some more. Hit me with a skimming spoon. I can't do this by myself. I'm like an elephant that dreams of gardens back in Hindustan and doesn't pay attention to his driver. You're my cook, my driver, my way into existence. I love your cooking. The cook says, I was once like you. Fresh from the ground, then I boiled in time and boiled in body and boiled 2 more fierce times. My animal soul grew powerful and I controlled it with prayer and practices and boiled some more and boiled once more beyond that and became your teacher. The lessons of the chickpea. So I wanted to mention a couple of things before I continue. First of all, Rumi, when he was composing these pieces, was not writing them down and crossing them out, rewriting them, getting out his thesaurus, looking for a better word. He was just speaking extemporaneously from his experience, from the sounds he heard, from the conversations he was having. And so his followers would take down what he said, and then later they would show them the notes, and he might make some corrections. But basically, he was just spritzing and sharing this with people. It was amazing that he did this for so many thousands and thousands of lines of what we think of as poetry, but what he saw as spiritual teachings, trying to bring our relationship to God into a place where we could understand it the way we understand baking bread, or digging a hole in the ground, or drinking a glass of milk, or falling asleep, or waking up the next morning. The other thing is that with these are all in English, obviously, and these are the versions I know. And they are versions that were written or put together from exact translations by different American poets, such as Coleman Barks and Robert Bly. Some people understandably feel that this might be considered cultural appropriation, because it's not the exact translation, the way, I don't know, maybe someone in England might feel about hearing Shakespeare translated, and it's not exact. This, I think, has the feel of what Rumi was saying. I would certainly bow before anyone who says, but that's not what he meant. That could very well be the case. It's 800 years on, and we're looking at a translation into a poetic idiom from an original piece that's from medieval Persian poetry. So I would just make that statement. I'm not trying to diss anyone in any way. I hope that the sincerity of these versions speaks for itself, and if one is interested in going to the root of what Rumi was saying more exactly, there are exact translations out there. I just find them to be a little bit lifeless at times, the exact translations. All right, so these are 3 poems on friendship and change. The first one is called A Mouse and a Frog. A mouse and a frog meet every morning by the bank of the river. They sit in a nook of the ground and talk. Each morning, the second they see each other, they open easily, telling stories and dreams and secrets, empty of any fear or suspicious holding back. To watch and listen to these two is to understand how, as it's written, sometimes when two beings come together, Christ is visible. The mouse starts laughing out a story he hasn't thought of in 5 years, and the telling of it might take 5 years more. There's no blocking the speech flow, river running, all carrying momentum that true intimacy is. Bitterness doesn't stand a chance with these two. The God messenger hitter touches a roasted fish. It leaps off the grill and back into the water. Friends sit by friend, and the tablets appear. They read the mysteries off of each other's foreheads. But one day, the mouse complains. There are times when I want to speak with you when you're out in the water, jumping around where you can't hear me. We meet at this appointed time, but the texts say lovers pray constantly. Once a day, once a week, 5 times an hour is not enough. Fish like we are need the ocean around us. Do camel bells say, let's meet back here Thursday night? Ridiculous! They jingle together continuously, talking while the camel walks. Do you pay regular visits to yourself? Don't argue or answer rationally. Let us die and dying reply. This next one is one of my all-time favorites. It's also the longest one of the evening. And I might tear up when I'm reading it, because I usually do. You may have heard it's the custom for kings to let warriors stand on the left, the side of the heart and of courage. On the right, they put the chancellor and various secretaries, because the practice of bookkeeping and writing usually belongs to the right hand. In the center, the Sufis, because in meditation they become mirrors, The king can look at their faces and see his original state. Give the beautiful ones mirrors and let them fall in love with themselves. That way they polish their souls and kindle remembering in others. A close friend once came to visit Joseph. They had shared the secrets that children tell each other while lying on their pillows at night before they go to sleep. These two were completely truthful with each other. The friend asked, "What was it like when you realized your brothers were jealous and what they planned to do?" "I felt like a lion with a chain around its neck, not degraded by the chain and not complaining, but just waiting for my power to be recognized." "How about down in the well and in prison? How was it then?" "Like the moon when it's getting smaller and yet knowing the fullness to come. Like a seed pearl ground in the mortar for medicine that knows it will now be the light of the human eye. Like a grain of wheat that breaks open in the ground, that grows, then gets harvested and crushed in the mill for flour, then baked and crushed again between teeth to become a person's deepest understanding. Lost in love, like the songs of the planters sing the night after they sow the seed. There is no end to any of this." Back to something else the good man and Joseph talked about. "Ah, my friend, what have you brought me? You know a traveler should not arrive empty-handed at the door of a friend like me. That's going to the grinding stone without your wheat. God will ask at the resurrection, 'Did you bring a present? Did you forget? Did you think you wouldn't see me?' Joseph kept teasing. 'Let's have it. I want my gift.' The guest began. 'You can't imagine how I've looked for something for you. Nothing seemed appropriate. You don't take gold down into a gold mine or a drop of water to the Sea of Oman. Everything I thought of was like bringing cumin seed to Kermanshah. You have all the seeds in your barn. You even have my love and my soul, so I can't even bring those. I brought you a mirror. Look at yourself and remember me.' He took the mirror out from his robe where he was holding it. What is the mirror of being? Non-being. Always bring a mirror of non-existence as a gift. Any other present is foolish. Let the poor man look deep into generosity. Let the bread see a hungry person. Let kindling behold a spark from the flint. An empty mirror and your worst destructive habits. When they are held up to each other, that's when the real making begins. That's what art and crafting are. A tailor needs a torn garment to practice his expertise. The trunks of trees must be cut and used for fine carpentry. Your doctor must have a broken leg to doctor. Your defects are the ways that glory gets manifested. Whoever sees clearly what's diseased in himself begins to gallop on the way. There is nothing worse than thinking you are well enough. More than anything, self-complacency blocks the workmanship. Put your vileness up to a mirror and weep. Get that self-satisfaction flowing out of you. Satan thought, I am better than Adam, and better than is still strongly in us. Your stream water may look clean, but there's unstirred matter in the bottom. Your shake can dig a side channel that will drain the waste off. Trust your wound to a teacher's surgery. Flies collect on a wound. They cover it. Those flies of your self-protecting feelings, your love for what you think is yours. Let a teacher wave away the flies and put a plaster on the wound. Don't turn your head. Keep looking at the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you. And don't believe for a moment that you're healing yourself. The worm's waking. This is how a human being can change. There is a worm addicted to eating grape leaves. Suddenly he wakes up, call it grace, whatever. Something wakes him, and he is no longer a worm. He is the entire vineyard, and the orchard too, the fruit, the trunks, the growing wisdom and joy that does not need to devour. moved it around so it followed the flute solo. These are 5 poems on self-control, love, and grace. This one is the Song of the Reed Flute, which is the piece that begins the Masnavi, Rumi's great, massive work. Listen to the reed flute, how it complains, weeping its exile from home. Ever since I tore me away from my reed bed, my mournful notes have moved men and women to tears. I burst my breast, striving to give vent to sorrows and to express the pangs of my yearning for my home. One who abides far away from their family is ever longing for the day they shall return. My wailing is heard in every throng, in concert with them that rejoice and those that weep. Each interprets my notes in harmony with their own feelings, but not one fathoms the secrets of my heart. My secrets are not apart from my plaintive notes, yet they are not evident to the sensual eye and ear. Body is not veiled from soul, neither soul from body, yet no one has ever seen a soul. This cry of the flute is fire, not mere air. Let those who lack fire beware. Better they should stuff their ears than listen. Powerful instrument. This next one is called zikr. Zikr is a practice of remembrance that many Sufis do, where you chant La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. Nothing exists but God. Exactly, there's no God but Allah. And you have to remember, at the time when Muhammad first brought this message from God to the people of the Arabian Peninsula and later the Middle East and Europe and all the rest, there were many gods. Small gods, big gods, all over the place. In fact, I think this was the case, in Mecca, there were a series of temples and effigies to different gods. And one of the things that Muhammad did was convince the people that those are not correct, not right. You're not worshiping God if you worship the one of wheat or the one of mountains or the one of stream. So, as we all know, there is Yahweh for the Jews, there is God or the Trinity for Christians, and there is Allah for Muslims. But it's all the same God. So zikr is remembering that to the point where you don't forget, which means you have to do it a lot, because we're very good at forgetting. A naked man jumps in the river, hornets swarming above him. The water is the zikr, the remembering. There is no reality but God. There is only God. The hornets are his sexual remembering, this woman, that woman, or if a woman, that this man, that, or if it's anyone, whoever it is, that being that I am turned on or obsessed about. The head comes up, they get stung. Breathe water, become river, head to foot. Hornets leave you alone then. Even if you're too far from the river, they pay no attention. No one looks for stars when the sun's out. A person blended into God does not disappear. He or she or they is just completely soaked in God's qualities. Do you need a quote from the Quran? All shall be brought into our presence. Join those travelers. The lamps we burn go out, some quickly, some last till daybreak, some are dim, some intense, all fed with fuel. If a light goes out in one house, that doesn't affect the next house. This is the story of the animal soul, not the divine soul. The sun shines on every house, and when it goes down, all houses get dark. Light is the image of your teacher. Your enemies love the dark. A spider weaves a web over a light, out of himself or herself makes a veil. Don't try to control a wild horse by grabbing its leg. Take hold of the neck. Use a bridle. Be sensible, then ride. There's a need for self-denial. Don't be contemptuous of old obediences. They help. The sunrise ruby. In the early morning hour, just before dawn, lover and beloved wake and take a drink of water. She says, "Do you love me or yourself more?" Really, tell the absolute truth. He says, there's nothing left of me. I'm like a ruby held up to the sunrise. Is it still a stone or a world made of redness? It has no resistance to sunlight. This is how Halaj said, I am God, and told the truth. The ruby and the sunrise are one. Be courageous and discipline yourself. Completely become hearing and ear, and wear this sun ruby as an earring. Work. Keep digging your well. Don't think about getting off from work. Water is there somewhere. Submit to a daily practice. Your loyalty to that is a ring on the door. Keep knocking, and the joy inside will eventually open a window. And look out to see who's there. It mentioned Halaj. Halaj was a Sufi mystic who lived before Rumi's time, who was killed because he said, I am God. And, of course, that's always a dangerous thing to say, even if it's true. The guest house, you might know this one. It's been used often enough. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. They may be cleaning you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. This last one in this section is another one of my old favorites. Years ago, I got to meet Coleman Barks. Caroline and I both did. We got to go to one of his first readings in California when there were, well, as many people half as many people in the room as there are now. And I told him how much I liked Rumi and liked his work, and told him about how much I liked Robert Bly's version of Rumi poems. And he said, well, there's an interesting story there. Robert Bly and I know each other, and at a certain point a few years ago, he said to me, there's this immense body of work by this guy, Rumi, who was a Sufi mystic. And his work has not been really translated into English for like 100 years. You might think about that. So, Coleman Barks did, and many books later, that's what he's known for, even though he's a poet himself, and quite a good one. But it's funny how that works sometimes. This is called This We Have Now. This we have now is not imagination. This is not grief or joy, nor a judging state, or an elation or a sadness. Those come and go. This is the presence that doesn't. It's dawn, Hussam, here in the splendor of coral, inside the friend, in the simple truth of what Halaj said. What else could human beings want? When grapes turn to wine, they're wanting this. When the night sky pours by, it's really a crowd of beggars, and they all want some of this. This we are now created the body cell by cell, like bees building a honeycomb. The human body in the universe grew from this, not this from the universe and the human body. search for meaning and understanding. Someone digging in the ground. An eye is meant to see things. The soul is here for its own joy. A head has one use for loving true love. Legs to run after. Love is for vanishing into the sky. The mind for learning what men have done and tried to do. Mysteries are not to be solved. The eyes go blind when it only wants to see why. A lover is always accused of something, but when he finds his love, whatever was lost in the looking comes back, but completely changed. On the way to Mecca, many dangers. Thieves, the blowing sand, only camel's milk to drink. Still, each pilgrim kisses the black stone with pure longing, feeling in the surface the taste of the lips he wants. This talk is like stamping new coins. They pile up while the real work is being done outside by someone digging in the ground. The dream that must be interpreted. This place is a dream. Only a sleeper considers it real. Then death comes like dawn, and you wake up laughing at what you thought was your grief. But there's a difference with this dream. Everything cruel and unconscious done in the illusion of the present world, all that does not fade away at the death waking. It stays, and it must be interpreted. All the mean laughing, all the quick sexual wanting, those torn coats of Joseph, they change into powerful wolves that you must face. The retaliation that someone gives you now, the swift payback hit, is just a boy's game to what the other will be. You know about circumcision here. It's full castration there. And this groggy time we live, this is what it's like. A man goes to sleep in the town where he has always lived, and he dreams he's living in another town. In the dream, he doesn't remember the town he's sleeping in his bed in. He believes the reality of the dream town. The world is that kind of sleep. The dust of many crumbled cities settles over us like a forgetful doze. But we are older than those cities. We began as a mineral. We emerged into plant life, and then into an animal state, and then into being human. And always we have forgotten our former states, except in early spring, when we slightly recall being green again. That's how a young person turns toward a teacher. That's how a baby leans toward the breast, without knowing the secret of its desire, yet turning instinctively. Humankind is being led along an evolving course. Through this migration of intelligences, and though we seem to be sleeping, there is an inner wakefulness that directs the dream, that we will eventually startle us back to the truth of who we are. Final poem. Not Christian or Jew. I just have to say before I read this, Rumi was a dedicated, faithful Muslim. And he had the ability to see beyond one religious point of view, to see the sacredness in others, in Christians and Jews and Hindus and Buddhists. And I think that's one of the things that for me makes his work so powerful, that he doesn't judge. He comments on it. He points things out. It doesn't say bad. He's trying to take on God's perspective as he speaks. Not Christian or Jew or Muslim nor Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi or Zen. Not any religion or cultural system. I am not from the east or the west. Not out of the ocean or up from the ground. Not natural or ethereal. Not composed of elements at all. I do not exist. Am not an entity in this world or the next. Did not descend from Adam and Eve or any origin story. My place is the placeless, a trace of the traceless. Neither body or soul, I belong to the beloved. Have seen the two worlds as one, and know that call. And know that first, last, outer, inner, only that breath-breathing human being. thank you all so much for being here this evening. I hope you enjoyed that. It was wonderful to get to share it with everyone and with the beautiful music. Wonderful, wonderful pairing, I thought, like Cabernet and steak. So, if you'd like to, stay and visit a little bit, please feel free to. But really, thanks for coming. We hope to do something similar again at some point. Oh, look at you! There are cookies. Thank you, Sunita. Oh, that's beautiful. Traditional. Now, is this from Pakistan?
No.
That's right.
That's the very first thing.